Focus up here.
Alright. Good evening, class. My name is Edgar Refutation, and I am refuting Sarah Lopez's speech, in which she claims that animal testing is necessary for medical advancement. Sarah emphasizes that animal testing is a necessity, and while it's true that animal testing has helped with the development of vaccines for deadly viruses, I certainly believe that there is indeed other alternatives that can help us diagnose and develop vaccines for deadly viruses. Sarah does name some diseases we have eliminated or reduced, like smallpox and malaria. However, she has no source or expertise opinion that can support her research, despite the fact that she constantly mentions that she got from animal research, that her research was from animal research. Now, there are several stances in the internet about this topic, but I chose one in particular that caught my attention. This is from a former U.S. National Institute's health director called Dr. Elias Zerhouni. That's his last name. He admitted that experimenting on animals to help humans has resulted in a major failure, and he says the following: "We have moved away from studying human disease in humans. We have all drank the Kool-Aid on that one, including myself. The problem is that animal testing hasn't worked, and it's time to stop dancing around the problem. We need to refocus and adapt new methodologies for using humans to understand disease biology in humans." Despite Sarah saying that we would rather lose animals in larger quantities than humans, it doesn't take the fact away that it's cruel, and not just cruel, but animal testing is expensive and inapplicable to humans. Modern alternative methods include tests that use human cells and tissues. These are known as vitro methods. There are other methods like advanced computer modeling techniques, referred as silico models, and studies with human volunteers. So this is more, I would say this is a better method, not just because you're experimenting and interacting with humans, but it should be more accurate to the results you're looking for. In her speech, she says that alternative methods don't always give the answers we need when experimenting. My question to her would be, well, when did animal testing become the main or priority method that gives us those answers? She claims that animal testing is the way, and she mentions that alternatives lacks use in discovery for blood pressure and blindness. But she doesn't identify or suggest that there are any animals that are relative to us that can prove her point. With the lack of evidence and supportive research, her speech lacks validity because her research isn't being supported by any sources. In fact, I do express that her speech is not completely odd or that it's in no sense suitable, but if she had more evidence to back up her main point and be convincing, then there would be no reason to refute and argue that animal testing is not the only way that leads us to a cure for disease. Do you want this?
No, you sent me an outline, right?
Yeah.
By email. Okay, that's all I need. All right, you indicated the advocates claim pretty clearly. You don't really explain what the secondary issues are, so you're not following the structure there. And I think that becomes a problem because some of your responses feel random as a consequence. Even though occasionally you do cite a point that she brought up and then present a counterclaim, it's not necessarily occurring in any logical process, and sometimes it feels like you've skipped around on those points. I do think that you have a good general argument about a lack of sourcing on the advocate's points, you should point, I think you could be specific and say she made this particular claim, but she cited no example, no statistic, no authority on these particular points. It's a complete assertion. She mentioned the issue about curing, a variety of diseases, but she provided no source on that particular thing. Lots of things may have contributed to these sorts of things, and I'm not going to deny that animal research might have had a part of it, but the idea of giving credit for that, that's what she's doing, and she has not met a basic burden of proof to prove that particular claim. That's, I think, the way you wanted to present that claim. But I think it's a legitimate point. You had a good piece of evidence here from the director whose last name you had a hard time mentioning, the National Institute of Health director. I can't, it's like, it started with a Z, I think. Yeah. So whatever his name was, I thought it was a good piece of information, but you need to make a clearer claim from it. You basically present the information and expect us to make an inference from it. And I think I could probably come up with an inference here, but you should be making the inference, and that is that animal models are no longer necessary, and or that animal models have reached the limit of their usefulness. And so that's why we need to have other kinds of models to go on. That's kind of the argument that you're making, but you need to express it a lot more clearly. You raise the issue of cruelty. That's not relevant on the issue of fact that we're talking about. The expensiveness issue comes up, but there's no data on it from either you and none that's referred to from the advocate's point, so those are all assertions there. When you start talking about what the alternatives are, I think that's a good idea to tell us what some of those alternatives are, but there's no demonstration that any of those alternatives have produced outcomes, and if the advocate can show that animal research has produced outcomes, and you can't show that the alternatives, like cellular research or computer models, have produced outcomes, then we're left with a model that says this one works and this one, well, I think it might work, but we don't have any data to support it. So I think you need some additional evidence on that particular point. I kind of like the general position that you're taking, that ultimately alternative models are going to be necessary, but you kind of respond to that last point with a question instead of a claim, and I think that that's one of the problems here, is that you're frequently asking questions, responding to an issue without making declarative claims or presenting evidence on your own, and you need to be a little bit more forceful about the positions that you're taking. All right, thank you.